Haribol!
Haribol!
Welcome to day 2 of our exploration of the Bhagavad Gita here at Devotion and Motion. So we went through a lot of beautiful sharing yesterday. So today, what Bhagavad Gita has to say about that, and we'll start with reflections of what your experience yesterday was for a couple minutes before we get into today. But first, what we really do is start with some kirtan.
Haribol.
Drop us in transcendental vibration. Before we start, we'll just invoke the great devotees who've come before, that we can receive so much. There's so much there for those who put their hand out and ask. Om Jnanatasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmitana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasai Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare So we're gonna do a lightning round of reflections from yesterday, which means 1, 2 sentences, things that stuck out from your experiences. Could be um, in this tent where we had a talk on the modes of nature. Could be from any of the other wonderful bhakti related experiences we had. Reflections, even this morning. Hear the kirtan while I'm preparing for class. Powerful.
I love that when you told us, like, I'm a chanter in silence. And I love that you said if you chant in silence, your thoughts come in and like you can't get rid of them as easy. And I realized today when I was doing it a little more whispery, I was like, I could get rid of them faster. So I was glad for that tip.
Yeah. Yeah, taking shelter of sound. Nice.
I don't think I'm alone that I almost bowed down, touched my head to the floor before doing other things, but I forgot. Well,
That was me.
Yeah.
I looked at my phone and then I.
we both were like,
Progress.
yeah, we both had the same place, and I was coming out of the bathroom. I was like, oh, God darn it, and I did it. I come out of the bathroom. Yeah, that's where I hit the floor too. So,
Yeah, creating new habits
yeah.
and working against the scripts that are already there, like because practically it doesn't autopilot, you know. So good for you. There's some, turning off autopilot and being like, no, we're doing it this way now. Progress. Awesome. Any other reflections?
I liked how when we talked about the mode of goodness, we talked about like, okay, that was a thing. What's happening underneath it? Like introspection. And I can honestly say for myself, that was like when we did our session after class, and you're going through some pretty, I called it guttural or primal release, that it wasn't like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? How do I fix this? It was like, whoa, something's happening. So it was really sweet to have had that guidance going into that session, because it's just kind of like, okay, there's stuff. And I didn't realize, I thought I was a little more healed than I thought I was. And there's stuff that's coming from like my gut just leaving. So I just thought it was really cool to be able to be like, oh, we just like, we can really be an observer, and it's kind of beautiful.
Yeah, presence is actually a tremendous gift that we can give ourselves or anyone we're giving our attention to. We're actually little units of attention. That's what we are. We're little tiny units of attention. It's what we can give. In a way, that's all we have to give, is that we can give our attention, because as a spark of consciousness, what does that mean? That we can choose to put our attention on anything. There's a certain amount of like, I can only put my attention on what's in front of me, or what I can conceive of, or what I choose to. So it's whatever's outside of my experience, I guess I can't, because we're not perfect and powerful. We are little units of like, where do I want to put my attention? And yesterday I experienced, maybe some of you did too, with that mountain reflection experience, that it was this thing of just being with somebody and either being completely present with them or having them be completely present with you, with no other social niceties, no words to say, no games. And it's incredibly powerful. Eye contact is really powerful. You ever look somebody in the eye, even like a non-human person, and you're like, wait a minute, there's someone looking back at me. It's not like looking at any other part of the body. There's actually like a dynamic person. So it works emotionally too. Like I'm hearing, sitting with whatever your experience was, it was supported to do that, because we're talking about the mode of goodness. Mode of goodness means being present. By contrast, something like a mode of passion response would be, well, trying to fix. I'm going through this thing, so I got to fix it. Or like planning mode, thinking about the future, hankering. And a mode of tamas, mode of darkness, would be like denial, avoidance, blame, guilt, the lower parts of shame, not the useful parts, and lamentation. Why does it have to be like this? Self-judgment. But,
and I felt like it enabled me to be more compassionate with myself. So then when we did the mountain, I was even more compassionate to my partner. I felt like, at least internally. So it was just a really pretty domino effect from your class to our breathwork journey to that sharing. It was kind of just like this very beautiful progression of like taking the philosophy and putting it in action.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that more today, like the connection between being compassionate to oneself and compassion to others, and how that comes out in Bhagavad Gita. Thank you. Any other reflections? All right. So Does anyone know, in a nutshell, what the context of Bhagavad Gita is? How does it start? Because it's actually like a section of a huge work called the Mahabharata. So there's stuff happening before, stuff afterwards. The Gita is like the spiritual essence of it. But what's the context? There's a battle. That's a pretty dramatic event. If you think about it. So one thing is that in terms of practicality of Bhagavad Gita, which is really the whole point of what we're doing here, the Bhagavad Gita is spoken right before the most gritty, down to earth, knock him out, drag him down, difficult situation you can imagine. It's not like the Bhagavad Gita is a conversation between one yogi and another yogi passing on mountaintops. It's not in a classroom. It's spoken by a warrior to his charioteer. And the charioteer happens to be the supreme person. But it's right before a war. And it's not just any war. It's a war in which that warrior, Arjuna, he realizes progressively in that first chapter what he has to do. I mean, he kind of knew it theoretically. Actually, he was totally equipped for what he had to do. He was the most qualified warrior. It's like another day at work. You go into work and you're like, yeah, I'm really good at this job. I got hired because I'm the best. He was the best. He was like the manliest of powerful warriors, very, very equipped. He had defeated all these demigods and actually gotten their blessings and their weapons to fulfill his duty of protecting people. He's a protector, right? And he realizes as he looks across the battlefield, it becomes real for him. Oh my goodness, I have to kill my uncle. I have to kill my own teachers, the ones who taught me how to fight. Somehow or other, the circumstances of this battle are that I know I'm doing the right thing, but either I don't do it and leave, which sometimes I can feel appealing, right? It's like, this is so difficult, I'd rather leave. Or I do it and I can't imagine enjoying life afterwards. I can't imagine anything but the taste of dust and ashes in my mouth. I can't imagine this will go anywhere good. The loss is just inconceivable to him. In fact, you mentioned yesterday that all the chapters of Bhagavad Gita, their title in Sanskrit is this kind of yoga, that kind of yoga. The connection of karma, the connection of the modes of nature, chapter 14 is what we talked about, right? How can understanding the modes of nature connect us to higher power? The first chapter too is also, it's called Vishada Yoga, which means the yoga of lamentation, the yoga of despair, right? In a way, it's like the yoga of grief. Arjuna's not actually grieving for what's happened. He's grieving for what has to happen. It's like preemptive grief. When he gets there and he realizes the enormity of the situation and how it's basically a problem. This is not okay, but it has to happen. It hits him so hard that this most qualified of warriors starts trembling, starts crying, starts sweating. He drops his weapon and acts inconceivable, either to him or his teachers. He basically falls down on the ground and has a nervous breakdown because the enormity of the situation is so powerful. He's experiencing like concentrated grief. And that experience is what allows the rest of the Bhagavad Gita to be possible, actually. Because the other instructions, none of this can flow unless he has this teachable moment, right? So the Bhagavad Gita is fundamentally this story of going through life, being very qualified, thinking you have it in control, and having your eyes open to something that's so much bigger than you, that just sucks. And grieving for that. And then, in the face of that, turning to higher power and receiving wisdom and strength. And so all the other 17 chapters are after Arjuna breaks down and his heart is cracked open. And he can't run from the fact that I can't control this. This is beyond me. And I don't know how to fix it, right? So, just connect yesterday, the tamasic reaction to something so big and so terrible will be denial. Classic. First of the ways we try to deal with these things is denial. Some way of masking, forgetting, avoiding, intoxication, distraction, We have a great culture of distraction, actually. We've created numerous ways, better than ever, to distract ourselves from the painful realities of life. And there's actually always a market for that, because there's always going to be somebody who wants to avoid something painful, because there's always something painful to avoid. And we've gotten better and better at creating little alternate realities we can immerse ourselves into to avoid. And the rajasic, the passion response, is to fix it, to try to fix it. And in a very concentrated way, in one chapter, and technically the first few verses of the second chapter, Arjuna realizes and completely accepts he can't avoid this and he can't change it. And it sucks. And that's actually relatable, even if we're not generals about to go on a battlefield, because it's not a specific situation. It's the point. It's the fundamental situation of the human experience. You're going to have things taken away. He's going to lose friends and family. He's going to have to preside over, if he wins, and the good guys win, which he's definitely a good guy for the purposes of the narrative. It's not, there's no like moral gray area for him. He's actually like, absolutely, he should win this battle. We want that. But if he does, he's got to preside over a kingdom where there's going to be widows and orphans. There's going to be a lot of loss, right? And he's very soft-hearted, which is the first lesson that Bhagavad Gita is teaching us. It's not a fault and a flaw to have a soft heart, right? Sometimes we may think, I wish I didn't have this capacity to feel pain. I wish that I weren't so sensitive. I wish that I couldn't see how broken and painful and maybe disgusting a situation or things outside of my control are. But I can't. And that's just the way I am. And wouldn't it be easier if I could just be, harder and like make a joke about it and really not care? And the way the Bhagavad Gita flows, the answer is no, it wouldn't be better, because it's that pain that creates Arjuna turn into Krishna in desperation, saying, I can't figure this out. In 2.7, there's this turning point, the whole narrative of Bhagavad Gita. This is a critical verse. First, before that, he's presented with the situation. He gradually, but very quickly, comes to terms with this is going to happen and I can't change it. He starts like bargaining, thinking maybe I can leave. He starts lamenting, all kinds of things. In 2.7, he actually says, that's it. I can't figure this out. All of my strength is not sufficient for this. I've lost all my strength in the face of this, and I'm becoming actually like a fool. And Krishna, I don't want to have like a friendly conversation. I want you to be my teacher. Tell me what I'm missing here. Tell me what I can do, and how I can relieve this situation. And there's this act of self-surrender, right? There's this act of turning towards higher power and saying, even if I don't know who you are, someone somewhere is in control and it's not me. Please help, right? Can anyone relate to that?
Yes.
Everyone's hands go up. This is a human situation. It's just the way it is. The choice we have is whether to embrace help me consciousness or to go into denial or fixing. And much can be said about how denial and fixing don't solve the problem and just make bigger problems. I think with all of you, there's a lot of wisdom here in the room already, where you see that in your life and other people's attempts to deny and fix. There are some things that can't be denied, some things that can't be fixed. So we're not going to go into that. But what we are going to go into is that this teachable moment, this verse 2.7, it's beautiful Sanskrit. It's one of the first verses I memorized. Would you like to hear it?
Mm-hmm.
Arjuna says to Krishna, and even the meter changes, which is like an indication of a change of mood. It says, Karpanito shapata sapava prichamitam dharma samuta cheta yachayasya nishchitam bruhitam me shushyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam. I've become weakened. I don't know my way. Now in this state, I'm asking you humbly to take me as a student, be my teacher. Tell me what's best for me. I surrender unto you. What should I do? What is my duty in this situation? And Arjuna smiles and replies, and the whole Bhagavad Gita flows from that, right? There's this way in which Krishna is waiting for that. He's just waiting for that for every one of us. It's like, that's actually love. It's not You know, like yesterday, we had this experience of, you know, someone's pouring their heart out, and we're not trying to fix the problem. We're not trying to insert ourselves and make ourselves a hero. We're not trying to actually them. There's none of that. It's just about them. And when and if they ever said, "What's your opinion? What do you think I should do? What am I missing?" Then we have permission to say, "Okay, are you sure you want? I'll tell you what I think," and we can do that.
So Krishna is the mountain.
Krishna is the mountain. He's the best of mountains. He's the best listener, and he's the most patient, and he's the most renowned. So he doesn't have to actually include himself. There's no like, the experience of like, you're talking to someone and you're nodding and smiling, and inside you're thinking, I can't wait for them to stop talking so I can talk about what I want to talk about. Won't that be great? That'd be so good. I can't wait about it. Yeah, talk about that. Yeah, yeah. But your eyes are looking at them. But energetically, you're all up in your own business. Krishna doesn't do that. He has all the answers, but he doesn't do that. He's a million steps ahead of us, but he doesn't do that. Why? Because it's not loving. So there's a lesson right there. That exercise we did yesterday, that's Krishna's whole attitude to us. He's like, you got me if you want me. If you don't, I'm just here watching over you. Whatever you think. And as soon as there's that turning, that honest, sincere, irreplaceable moment of, you know what, Krishna, higher power, God, Goddess, Allah, Buddha, Jehovah, help me, universe. Then, and it doesn't have to be out loud. It could be just in heart. That attracts, and that causes the inflow of wisdom. When the student is ready, the master appears. This is a call of humility. I want to know. I don't know. I can't figure it out. I'm not the master. But there's a lesson here. What is the lesson? Okay. So this question, what is the lesson, is basically what Arjuna embraces and asks Krishna, what is the lesson? What am I missing? Not that there's no lesson, I can just avoid this, it's all fine, la-di-da. Not that I can figure it out what the lesson is. I need it to come to me. I'm in the dependent position. You know more than me. You are in the superior position. You please help me to see what I'm missing. So this is the answer. Yeah, so denial is ignorance, fix it is passion, and humility, acceptance, asking for help.
I wrote soft heart there.
Soft heart. Yeah, the soft heart, because without that soft heart, he's not actually able to accept that there is something awful happening. My grandfather guru, the guru of my guru, who wrote this most widely commented commentary in Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada, he writes that the soft-hearted nature of Arjuna, although on one level it was based on illusion, because he's stuck in like, this body's going to die and that's it for this person. He's not seeing, that there's actually a soul beyond that. He's temporarily overwhelmed by lamentation. It's actually his qualification, Prabhupada says. It's his qualification, because that soft heart, that recognition that there's a problem here, that I'm missing something. Why does it have to be this way? That's his qualification to receive that spiritual knowledge that he's not having. So yeah, so something. So grief. We've been talking about grief. We've been talking about love, talking about how they're like two sides of the same coin, We were even using like a visual medium to describe and express what the relationship is between grief and love. Right? For me, I didn't actually draw it because I'm really bad at drawing. Maybe I should have done that because I'm really bad at it. But I knew exactly what I wanted to draw. And my image was that the love is like a sunrise, like bright orange.
He told me after what he would have drawn.
No,
Yeah.
you have to draw it.
Yeah,
You have to draw it. That's
during your free time.
Well, I'm more of an orator.
And
So
then share
someone else can take my spoken word.
No,
What I
no,
mean.
no.
I know how to freaking watercolor. I don't know.
And then the grief is like the ugly things that you can only see when the sun rises.
He said they would have been little cactus.
Like ugly, thorny, bristly cacti,
Oh.
right? But you can't say like, I would rather be blind. I would rather the sun didn't rise. Then I don't have to see these ugly things. Because it's by virtue of that sunrise you can see anything, right? So it's only because we love that we can actually come to terms with the things that we fear anyway.
Wait, say that thing that what you just said again.
It's only.
It's only because we can love that we can even come to terms with the things that we fear or are ugly or sad.
And because the sun rises and you can even see the cactus. That's what he was saying with his show.
It's like being friends with your difficulties.
What is the lesson? What are they teaching me? So let's pause now. That's a lot about Bhagavad Gita. Let's take some reflections on what's happening for you, what you've heard just now in the last few minutes, or maybe especially around like this question of grief and love. You know, there's been a lot of discussion around that. And what's alive for you? If you have any questions or want to explore more, floor is open.
I have a question.
Yes.
I don't know if this would even make sense, but what would it, if he decided to fight? No, yeah,
decided not to fight.
if he decided not to fight, what would that have meant? Like, what would that have meant about his internal state or where he was at?
The context of his fighting is that it's something like maybe more relatable. Let's say you're a security guard or police officer, and your job, which you're good at and you embrace, and you're good at your job, and you're like a very by the book, honest, good-hearted person. There's no like corruption. Your job is to protect the innocent, basically. And you are going down the street one day and you hear a scuffle, you hear a struggle, and you follow this down to an alley and you get in there, and you can make out somebody like being grappling with someone else, and someone's clearly the aggressor, and someone's clearly like being attacked and asking for help, and you can hear it clearly now. And then you get into the darkness of the alley and you get it closer and closer and closer, and you realize the attacker is your brother, is your best friend, you're your twin, right? And for the purposes of this story, I know, right? That's the point. The purpose of the story, there's no doubt. There's no doubt about who is right and who is wrong in the situation. Do you run from that, or do you embrace it? Do you do your job? Do you pretend you didn't see it? So the consequence for Arjuna is if he leaves it is to abandon his duty and to leave people unprotected when they're counting on him, because it's difficult and he can't handle the consequences. And it's a form of this tamas, darkness, blinders.
What just happened in news? I mean, I don't watch the news anymore or listen to news, but like sometimes it sneaks through. And you know, that example of what happened on the subway car with the woman from Ukraine, like that is it actually they put that what you just said, they put that around the situation, and they were making commentary on like where is this world coming to? People just watched something happen. They were right there. Nobody stopped, nobody interceded, nobody did anything after the fact. And so,
yeah, it's a little more complicated because it's not exactly the same thing where it's like it's your duty to act when a mentally deranged person in real time does something and you have half a second to respond.
But still, it's like that complacency or that, you know, and I just think about when people don't do their duty, that degradation to society starts happening.
Right.
But also, if you are really good at your job, you know that the first thing to do is not take physical action, but to be like, what's going on here? And as the other people in the situation, your sister isn't able to see, like, we can unravel this tight knot. Unless you get the give, you gotta go into it. So it's your effect on someone else's ability to move through the gunas and be like, you're right. I really shouldn't have done that.
Yeah,
But
the backstory.
But you still have to do your job.
You still have to do your job. The backstory with Bhagavad Gita is that they had all that already.
Right.
They already had the talks.
Right.
They already had the humble approach.
Last resort. Yeah.
They were faced with complete and utter resistance and denial. The other side was like, no, this is no problem. I'm supposed to be taking what's mine. This is mine to take. And Arjuna represents, no, that's not right. And to run away from that would be personally very comforting, but would have left a lot of people in the lurch.
And then the rest of the text, the book, is about Krishna explaining to Arjuna why he needs to fight. Or if you don't, then you could go practice this path of yoga, or this path of yoga, or this path of yoga. And last one is bhakti. So you don't have to leave the world. You don't have to abandon your dharma. You can stay and fight and, you know, still be a yogi. And that's what that looks like.
So yesterday we talked about avoiding confrontation.
Mhm.
And what goes with that also, I think, is cowardness. Right? So in this case, not getting into the battle in a way is cowardness.
Right.
You know, and also indifference, you know, at a certain level.
It could have been.
It's
Yeah.
not my fight. You know, it's like that woman was thrown under, you know, everything that happens every day right now in the world.
It's not my problem.
It's not my problem. And there is that numbness that settles
Right.
on the individual, and then and it does its ripple effect, you know, from the top down. And then people eventually wake up. But sometimes it's a little late to wake up. But so how do you relate? You know, how do you weave that into the story? You know, clearly he understands that he has, you know, he has no choice, right, to go into the battle. Because the consequence of not going to the battle might be much dire for him, you know, at the soul level, on his heart and so forth, and versus going into the battle.
In a way, he doesn't have a choice, but in a way, we always have a choice. Because the point is, you know, avoidance of necessary conflict is a symbol of the lower mode. And could be evidence of cowardice or indifference or other things like that. The way I would relate it is that for Arjuna, first of all, he recognized that there was a tremendous opportunity for there was going to be a lot of loss. He wasn't jaded. He wasn't numb. Right? And we talked about how that's a qualification to receive higher knowledge. And then he realized that he couldn't solve the situation himself. And so, as I paraphrased Albert Einstein yesterday, he said, you can't solve a problem on the same level that created it. That's what Bhagavad Gita is about. It's about spiritual solutions for material problems. You know, people die, that's a problem. There's disease and suffering, that's a problem. These are material problems. They're a function of the material world. It has always been the case that there are these problems. Actually, it'll always be the case that there are these problems in the material world. You can manage them to some degree, but you can't eliminate them. The solution isn't a material one, it's a spiritual one. So the point for Arjuna, and therefore the point for us, is to recognize that none of my tools on this level can actually solve these problems. And numbing myself to them isn't going to help either. So then what am I missing? What can I understand if I come to a higher level and look at the situation that I'm not seeing right now because I'm in the situation? And that is exactly like what it's like to be in grief, to be dominated by a situation of distress, impending loss or experienced loss. You know, what can you grieve for? Grief for what? Pet? What else? Mom.
Loss of identity.
Or loss of identity. It's a big one.
Loss of a parent that can't show up that's still alive.
Yeah.
Not being able to give you what you need in this, even in this.
Loss of a relationship, even though they're alive.
It's a job.
It's a job. Loss of memory.
Yes.
Loss of money.
Eyesight, ear.
Loss of sensory perception. Loss of health. Loss of function. Right.
Time.
Loss of time. Grief for lost time. Ever done that? Oh my God, I've wasted so much time. Yeah.
I did have a question. Sometimes when we're in the grief space, we don't have the luxury of time because the material world us there's things that you have to do like right away.
Mhm.
And so then you do these things, you take these steps right away, and then you go back into that flow because you have to get back to work, you know, whatever
Right.
it is. And you don't have, and it may be years later that you realize that it's hitting you, like all of a sudden, like
Yeah.
you hit the wall, you hit the bottom, or whatever it is that you, the way it manifests itself. So yeah, so it's always that some traditions there is space for grief right away. I don't think that's not
Yeah.
that time, but you know, sometimes.
We shouldn't be surprised that a culture that prides itself on distraction is also a culture that minimizes the necessity of grieving and the way that grief manifests in different ways to different people or in the same person at different times. We shouldn't be surprised by that. We can be disappointed by it, but we shouldn't be surprised.
No.
That's unfortunately true.
like, oh, you only get a week of bereavement or whatever, right? Or even like when you're postpartum, like, oh, you gotta go back to work when it's like, it can take years and years and years and years.
Takes forever.
It takes forever.
It doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop. Yeah. And it's like, but the cold,
Mm.
or you have to, the person dies and then you call and you have to get the ashes and then you gotta plan the memorial and do all that. And it's like, how are you supposed to do that?
Yeah.
It's wild.
It's not particularly fair.
No.
And so Bhagavad Gita is okay. So there's this experience of someone grieving. Their heart is cracked open, and Bhagavad Gita, on the material level, it has some things to say about how we could organize society better, so that people did have the space and permission to be human, have a human experience, and not live in denial around that, and to hold space for each other without judgment. To be able to say like, oh, I've gone through this loss, and people tell me I'm supposed to be over it, but I'm not, and have someone just like receive that. Bhagavad Gita has a lot to say about living in a mode of goodness and creating a society around that. But even more than what it has to say about organizing society according to the higher modes, it's talking about how these moments of grief and loss are actually windows to higher reality. They're windows not just to reality of like organizing this world better and managing the problem better, but the fact that there's actually a spiritual perspective. What even is spirit? How is it different than matter? How is it that something that can have a beginning and an end can be a container for someone that's actually fundamentally different? It doesn't have a beginning. These are spiritual truths. What is the difference between the self and their circumstances? All these spiritual lessons that all the spiritual books and teachers of the world are trying to share, grief is a window to that, right? Or the window's always there, but like grief actually just pulls the blinds out of the way. You can actually see it.
Can you discuss this? One of the revelations I guess I had yesterday was, even though we said we were talking about grief and loss and celebration and love, just because you've lost doesn't mean you had grief, right? So how does the Gita handle that piece of it? Like there's loss, and then we're talking about his grief. I'm just curious, like, I don't know how I'm asking my question, but it's like,
There is always grief. It just may be unprocessed. Unprocessed grief.
Can you restate your question?
so I'm just kind of trying to figure out, like, I feel like there's a difference between grief and loss, but I think you just kind of reframed it so that may make some more sense, that like I look at them as two separate things, but actually
Loss is external, grief is internal.
yeah.
In a way, Arjuna hadn't lost anything because nothing's happened yet.
It was
He
like
should-
anticipatory grief.
Yeah, he knows exactly how it's going to go down. And because of that, and because he knows he's right, he's grieving it in advance. And because he has that soft heart.
Yeah.
So the function of grieving has to do with how willing you are to sit with an uncomfortable truth. Because things are going to be taken away all the time. And in a way, human life is the choice of how present we want to be with reality, or how much do I want to just be dulled to it. Because, other living entities go through loss too. Like, I'm sure for a praying mantis, there's loss when you are killed by another praying mantis. But we have no evidence of a praying mantis writing like Hamlet or a poem or grieving.
Don't elephants do something?
Elephants
Like a
are relatively very advanced. They do grieve. They do mourn tremendously. But there's a gradient, right? So it's like, how much do we want to be covered up and dulled? We
Yeah.
want to be like a plant. You can
Yeah.
cut me and I won't even, practically don't even feel it. So loss, grief often it's not a straight line relationship with loss. It has to do with how present we choose to be with the loss. It can be vicarious. Somebody can actually have tremendous spiritual realization by experiencing the loss of someone else's loss. Someone else loses something. If we have empathy comes from the Greek for to suffer with. To suffer with someone else's suffering is empathy. So if someone else's suffering makes you experience suffering, you're grieving with it. Right? That's why it's so powerful when we're holding space for somebody, to just hold space, because they're feeling held. They're feeling like no matter what else is going on in this loss, at least I'm not alone. Because this person is open body language, eye contact, full presence. They're not interrupting me. I can tell energetically. They're not thinking of how to fill in the blanks and solve this problem or how they can inject themselves. Right? They're just whatever I have to say, they're here for it. My pain, they're receiving it. Right? So the ability to feel your pain or someone else's pain can be that window, that teachable moment where it's like, oh my God, why is the world the way it is? What am I missing? Right? It's these fundamental questions. It's Arjuna asking these questions that allows the answers to come. If you don't ask the question, then what's the meaning of an answer, right? Ever had somebody somebody who's very intelligent, and you know they're very intelligent, they know more than you on a topic, or even like every topic. And then every time you're around them, or regularly when you're around them, they broadcast things that you didn't ask for, nobody asked for. How does it feel? Belittling,
It's exhausting.
exhausting. There's a word for that. There's a gendered word for it. Mansplaining.
Yeah.
You know, it happens in reverse too. The idea of someone like talking down to you because they know more about something, or they assume they know. Even if they did know it, condescension, right? It's not like the knowledge on its own is helpful. There has to be like a vessel that can receive it. So the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, this Vishada Yoga, the yoga of lamentation, is the ground being tilled. So it's fertile soil for realization. It's Arjuna coming to terms with reality, fully accepting it and saying, I want help. And then the biggest smarty pants in the universe, the source of everything, Krishna, are you sure? If you want, I can start talking if you want. And he starts opening up very patiently. So it's only somebody who is empty on their own terms that has to broadcast their own greatness. The source of everything is completely full, has nothing to prove to anybody. So if you want the highest wisdom, you have to empty yourself and recognize, I need this, I need you, whoever you are, please help. This seeking, this searching, this is what Arjuna had. This is what the great spiritualists of every tradition have, is humility, this seeking. And grief is a catalyst for that, because it's those teachable moments. There's actually a term for it in Sanskrit. It's kind of pungent. Shmashana Vairagya, the renunciation of the crematorium. Ever go to like a funeral and it's like for a few hours at least you're like really sober, and there's this dry, sober, honest, introspective, non-denying acceptance of reality. And after a while, like modes of nature kick in and you start to get like kind of intoxicated with your own thing, and then you kind of forget about it. But there's that temporary, it's like you just lost somebody. There's that temporary sobriety. That's the crematoriums, the gift of the crematorium, special renunciation. So what striking when the iron's hot is like actually recognizing in that moment that there's something deeper, right? And I don't have it's not that to live in integrity means that I'd spend the rest of my life feeling sad and awful every time something bad happens. I should beat myself up every time I hear about the SPCA's numbers for how many puppies have to be killed this year or whatever. It's not that we have to live like it's not that my duty to the universe is I have to be miserable and unhappy. I have to like remind everyone else about how tough the world is. It's not that. It's just like, what is this balance between living in denial and being miserable and finding no joy in life? How do I live with integrity and presence, right? And the only answer to that works is a spiritual answer. So grief functions as an entryway, right? Like all of you are here because you want higher knowledge. All of you are here because you want higher association, higher practice. So I think if we went around the room, we would find specific situations that have like been catalysts. In chemistry, a catalyst is something that like it speeds up something that's going to happen anyway. It makes it happen faster. Catalyst. Does anyone feel like they want to share catalyst in their life? Doesn't have to be a whole huge, just something small you want to share, but was a catalyst for you to seek out spiritual growth?
So I started this journey over 6 years ago.
Mm.
When I passed away, I was in a space where I've never been before. And and I took a workshop in Boston with Rival. I had taken one many years before that with him. And he was just starting Super Soul Sangha,
Mhm.
5 a.m. And I just latched on that. And so that was really a catalytic moment for me. I had, I'd been teaching yoga and so forth, but I had no knowledge, if you will, of the depth of this.
Right.
So, that Monday morning, 5 a.m., on the call, and it was 7 days a week, so 5 a.m. Till gradually, I kind of came up from the depths to the surface a little bit, catch me back. So that was really, for me, really catalytic.
Yeah. Bhagavad Gita is a yoga text.
I mean, playing the harmonium in the Tigro, I have no knowledge of that.
Mm.
So it was like just the
Awesome.
stars of mine, whatever, but it was.
Thank you. So just like personal loss combined with, being, you're in the yoga scene, and Bhagavad Gita is the yoga text. It's the main book of it. Every chapter is about yoga.
It
But
was a combination of the physical loss of my mom, but also of emptying our house, selling the house,
yeah,
my anchor in Marseille. So now when I go back to Marseille, so that was really, the loss and the grief was on so many levels, that it was amazing that I was able to be at that moment there, that it resonated.
hmm
Maybe it was like, what do you call it, the vest when you're about to drown.
life jacket.
Life jacket.
Yeah, it threw you a life jacket. Yeah, one of the messages of Bhagavad Gita is that we're not the supreme controller, and we're not in charge, but the person who is in charge is our very, very dear friend and our well-wisher. And notably, that message only comes after Arjuna starts to ask. So it's that realization that I can't control this, and I'm fundamentally not the controller. That touches really deep in the ego, because on some level we want to be the controller. On some level, it feels like, wouldn't it be great if I was completely in control and I could get my way? Because we're little agents, we're little units of attention, and we can want that, and it can seem appealing. And the message that you're not in control, or that there's some being, this can all sound just terrifying, make you angry, it can be unwanted, it can feel like condescension, until there's that moment of recognition that, oh yeah, this is beyond me and I'm not in control. So it's like, it's a deep thing. It's not just like a theoretical understanding that you're not in control. There has to be like a heartfelt space for that knowledge to fit in. Otherwise, it's going to bounce right off. So it's a combination of circumstances, and also I would say for you there was an internal way in which you recognized there was space. There was some space.
And I'm not sure it was, at that moment, it was really a life jacket, like a rope that I could just catch and hold on to. I wasn't sure at that moment that it was, that spiritual dimension per se.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It was just, okay, I have something to go by, and then
You weren't sure, but Krishna was sure.
that's the honest thing.
Raghu was sure. The person who was sharing the message, they were sure.
Sure.
Because it had worked for them too. It worked for Arjuna. Yeah. That's the cool thing about being the student, is you don't have to have the whole curriculum planned out. You don't it's not up to you to do that. You just got to show up with an open book and an open heart. And the teacher will guide you. So anyone want to share their catalysts?
I have a couple. One felt like the choice or not having a choice. I was reading the Comprehensive Guide and it felt like I had it before I was working with Kishore, and it was this moment of like every page something was resonating, being answered, and it was very practical and I could understand or just have this sense of like this is going to change everything. And then for many years after working with Kishore, even having this revelation, it was resisting grief around like I'm going to change everything I know is going to change. How am I going to live in this world with this knowledge, knowing who I am now and where I was from and what's going to kind of happen next? That felt like I would say the first stage of grief was like, now what do I do with this, or who am I going to become and what might happen next?
Yeah, possibility.
Yeah, very scary.
Yeah.
Terrifying. And then when my mother passed in December, our mother passed in December, I'd moved up here. I was in this community. I've had years of studying the Gita and being in association with Shamya. And when she passed, it was just like I was able to drop in, it felt like a drop into the teachings. This, I could see the grace, I could see the mercy, I could see the gratitude, I could see the arrangement. This is it, this is happening now, this is what's going on. I'm here to respond. And, you know, it definitely, and the community not only held me in so much grief and support through that, but to be in that shocking experience of death that was not planned for, that I didn't feel prepared for. I just had this knowing, I could see through the arrangement and I could feel like, I know that I'm okay and she's really okay and we're all gonna be okay. And on her deathbed, I could like anoint her in ghee and I had the Maha Mantra playing, and it's not something that
We did as a family.
we definitely did, but she understood and there was a resonance, and it was like my way of like participating in this, and the only way I kind of knew how, but but never really like questioned it. learned.
Like my brother
Yeah.
didn't question it, my sister-in-law didn't question it, it
Yeah.
just.
And for the shock of the death and the grief, even my mother's friends or family members that don't have this sort of ability to see past just like the body, it's like I could then even somehow be an anchor for them to either answer questions or to not be, I mean, I end up, you know, collapsing in grief in my own way in my own time. But in that moment of
You could serve them.
it happened, I could be of service, and
Yeah.
people could be like, how are you, like kind of like, okay, but how are you in this?
Yeah.
When it was like my mother, and it was just absolutely testament to Sangha and to you as teachers, my own personal ability to understand, receive, and integrate that in a moment where I wasn't prepared for, but but Bhakti is constantly preparing us to respond.
Yeah, you're studying for an exam. It's a pop quiz.
That was a big compliment. Huge.
Yeah, I'll share a story. In the 60s and 70s, the Bhakti Yoga community was growing and growing because it had been transplanted from India around the world. And at the time, it was viewed in different ways. One of my great teachers, Mother Nidra, saintly person in Denver, she put it this way. She said, first, they ignored us, then they abhorred us, then they adored us. So there was a stage of like suspicion and looking at things like this is a cult and this, you know, not understanding chanting and different things. And so there was a at the time young woman, she's much older now, who was living in a temple, dedicating her life to Bhakti Yoga and to the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, chanting very seriously. And to support that, she had created space between herself and her family, because her family was very adamant about, you have to leave this and come back to the real world where we live in a certain way. We don't, you know, we avoid talking about death. We don't chant. I mean, just things are very different. Mainstream society. And they were very loving about their choice, but they said, no, I'm sticking with this. And so there was a lot of friction. There was a lot of members of the family who didn't approve of what they were doing for years. Fast forward a couple of decades, they're no longer living in a temple, but they're still very serious about their practice. And there's still a lot of space between them and their family. And they find out that their mother is going to pass away. And they go back home. And their own reflection was that nobody knew how to handle it, because they were all on this platform of bewilderment, angst, impending loss like of the body. And as you said, there's so much around like planning, funerals. It's a lot, right? And she came in with all the same grief that they had, but helped and held space in such a shocking way for them, such a powerful way, that they came to her afterwards, particularly her brother, who had the most inimical relationship with her, and said, I realize now why you did what you did. We were qualified to help her in her life, and you were qualified to help her in her death. Because she had gone to school for that. She had sat with the difficulties of life and death. She had pre-grieved for all the losses, so that when one came, it wasn't like out of the clear blue sky, just like you had that experience of, okay, here it is, pop quiz time. I know this.
Julia was chanting, you were chanting at mom's house, you were playing the harmonium when her friends drove up with my mom, and Julia came down the stairs and was like, this isn't okay, we have to take her to the hospital. But it's like, that to me is just so, I don't know,
Yeah.
it just is.
When you're in the movement of it.
And it was, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's a way in which you can realize in that there's a deep knowing that it is okay. It's not a happy story. It's not denial. It's a very deep knowing that there's something deeper happening. There's a soul moving from one body to the next destination. They're okay. I'm okay. That's like a very deep knowing that comes from one's practice. Your eyes get open to that. Otherwise, it's like you can see but not see. So I can relate to that too. I lost my mother about 3 years ago. Very similar. I've been a monk for many years, and long story short, I was there just in time. She was not conscious, but like many people who are in their impending departure, they wait for all the family to come to the room.
Yes.
And especially mothers, by the way, it's true. Mothers are very attached, and it's very loving mother. She was waiting for me to be there, and I played the Maha Mantra for her, and she left a few hours later. And I had my grieving, I had my loss, and it was also just like deeply feeling that Krishna was with that situation because of the practice. So
So I think anticipatory grief it's a gift in a lot of ways.
foresight.
But how do you, I'm sorry,
It's foresight.
but how do you live and so you're not in this constant morbid feeling?
Right.
Or
Yes. Yeah.
putting
Fear.
somebody into the dirt before.
Right. Because it can seem like either like
You can't live in that space without
you can't.
feeling that
It's not
suffocation.
it's not actually healthy. It almost seems like it's this dualistic thing between like either I have to live in denial, which is what our society has chosen, like denial, distraction, it's all gonna be okay, don't talk about these things, or I have to be like the one that no one wants to invite to a party, who's constantly a Debbie Downer. It's like
God and dad.
ever notice how like very talented comedians, they often suffer in silence with their own depression,
Right.
because they're so good at observing the way that our society is broken, the fundamental pain of life, that they just kind of sit and steep in that forever, and it maybe turn into a profession that can crack jokes about it, but they're just like miserable people, right? It's not either or. It's actually living with integrity. So it's actually like being able to recognize things as they are and still choosing love, right? It's like, it's not, I choose love, but I want to have it on my terms with none of the ugly stuff. I want to like sanitize a vision of reality and create that, and that's my idea of love. Or I choose grief and sadness, and I sit with that, and that's my reality. It's all just grief and sadness. I'm gonna paint it black, for any Rolling Stones fans. It's actually like Bhagavad Gita is an expression of reality, the beautiful. It turns out that Arjuna was missing that reality is actually supremely beautiful. Krishna is actually his best friend. And he needed to actually recognize that I'm missing something here in order to feel the truth of that. It's not theoretical for him. He's not a true believer. He doesn't sign the dotted line. He doesn't join a cult. He's not born into it. He chooses, please help me to understand what I'm missing. And Krishna holds him by the hand and helps him realize how held he is reality is actually beautiful. There's actually a lot of darkness, and still there's so much love there. And that's what we're looking forward towards. That's what it means to live in integrity. That's what Bhagavad Gita is trying to guide us towards, what Krishna is trying to guide us towards. Somebody who's in that interim stage, like, oh, there's so much darkness, and you're all just like living in denial. They're actually not all the way there yet. That's a reaction to avoidance, right? It's a reaction to people living in denial, maybe their own previous denial. It's like they have this angry, bitter, dark, goth face, where it's all just like bad, right? But underneath that, they have this sensitive heart. And what is the source of that sensitive heart? Who is the supreme heart? Right? That they don't know. For the time being, they don't know. So it's not that we're trying to live at those two lower levels. It's that they're integrated. There is joy in spiritual integrity. There is like presence in that. There is like alakadana. There's sobriety, and there's also room for fun. Krishna is very fun loving. There is like personhood and exchange and all these things. But all those are theoretical until we can actually like accept the grief and use it as a means to turn toward higher wisdom. Right? Whether it's internal or external, like we start to come to some sangha, we start to come to some practice, we start to take up some association, we start to be around persons who are more wise than us spiritually, we come to some retreat. There's a way in which like that grief was the catalyst, the fire starter. And then you start to go down that path. And then the answers start to come and they start to make sense.
Would you say it's like a little bit of a lesson in detachment too? Because I know we can get really attached. It's hard
Grief?
not to get attached to people that we love.
Yeah, it's detachment, but also like correct attachment. Because part of the problem is not just that we're attached. Because see, the thing is, as Bhagavad Gita explains, we're meant to be attached. We're little units of attention. An attention giver is an attacher. But the problem is the nature of the attachment, right? If you're attached to something that's temporary, like if I said to you, I just spent $50,000 decorating my rental apartment, and the contract is finished next month. You might say to me, "Jamia, buddy, I love you, but are you not aware that you can't live in there forever?" Right? And, one of my teachers puts it this way. Actually, this is the story Srila Prabhupada tells. He said, if someone told you, you can come to my house, I have infinite resources, infinite money, and you can have whatever you want, eat whatever you want, do whatever you want, all night, in fact, all week, and all the money and all the experiences. And after that, little afterthought, just as a note, after that, I will come and take everything you've eaten and eject it from your body, take all the money out of your pockets, and I have 2 hired goons who will beat you and toss you out on the side of the street. Will you consider that a good deal? Will you be really invested in that deal? So the surface level attachment is a problem, because if you're attached to things that are being taken away, you're going to be let down, right? Because there's an implicit way in which you think that's going to last forever. Because we're little units of spiritual experience. We actually persist. It's actually very foreign for us to have beginnings and endings. So we're always surprised when we graduate from high school, or someone dies, or I get a gray hair. It's like, really? What the heck?
Or a baby
know?
comes out of you.
Right. What's the matter?
This is insane.
Beginnings, just ask a baby.
I don't even.
They spend the whole time crying. It's spiritual jet lag. They're just like left the womb. Who knows what their previous life was? And all of a sudden there's this bright light. Everyone's talking. And what? May as well start crying. Nothing else.
I
to
didn't
do.
even cry. She just looked around.
What's going on? So attachment isn't the problem. It's the misguided attachment, the misdirected attachment. And yes, there can be over attachment too. There can be a sense of like, I'm in control, I'm in charge. And that's like, no, you're not. Like, oh, that's a dream. Holding on to a dream. So the grief can be very coming back to reality, where you realize I've been living in a dream. I've been telling myself some lies, or I've been attached the wrong way to the wrong things.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, it's just hard to wrap your head around. Like, okay, there's all this. Like, the world is kind of, it's gonna sound awful. The world's here to break us or make us come to a higher consciousness.
If we need
like,
that.
If we need that. Yet there's so much wonder and beauty, and it's just like marrying these concepts together. And even when you said the word reality, I was like, okay, but what's his definition of reality? You know, so it's like it's interesting to layer these things to say, yes, there's ugliness and there's beauty, and to sit with it. Yes, that like we're here to get these teachings so we can transcend it. And so it's really painful, but it's also full of love. It's just it's an interesting thing to wrap your head around.
Yeah, because one of the things that for me makes it really interesting to wrap my head around is that the goal of Bhagavad Gita isn't to like figure out the world and like be done with it, let it go, let it be, like throw it into the garbage or reject it, or deny it, or look down on it. It's to live your life in the world with knowledge of your spiritual identity, in integrity with your spiritual purpose. That's the whole point. If anything, you're more embedded after you read Bhagavad Gita than you are before, just more correctly. It's like, oh, I'm actually here to serve. I'm actually a servant. That's what doesn't change. I'm a little unit of service. I'm a little unit of giving. That's shocking because everyone already kind of knows there's this choice between opting into the American dream or the material idea of the dream and denying it. We know that. We know those two. We know that dualistic thing. That's very typical. That's that, like living in bitterness versus living in denial. We know all about that. Bhagavad Gita is saying, no, it's neither of those things. And you're going to be in the world and stuff's going to happen and you're still going to be blissful. How does that even work? Right? So.
It's like perhaps the world isn't here to break us, it's here to break our hearts open.
The whole point I've been trying to make is that grief as a lesson is it's just creating that space for something higher to come in, right? If a cup is already full, you can't pour. If a cup is already full of like black ink, you can't pour clean, clear water into it. You can't. It's not going to happen. There has to be an unloading. There has to be recognition that there's something more I could have. Student consciousness. Yes.
I was thinking about, you were asking about like what were some of our catalysts, and I was thinking about how like childhood trauma was a huge catalyst because there was like grief of love, right? Like you had like an absence of love. You're a child who had traumatic
Feeling a lack.
Yeah. And so I was thinking about that when you were talking about it and thinking about how that's so amazing to really think about that like having that lack of love in your life as a child is actually like one of the best blessings you can have, because now like my heart was so open and ready to receive love from the divine, like from God, to feel it when I was in a young age, and also like to understand how that's how you create space. And so it just brings us, like you were saying, this openness. And so it's really beautiful to think about that. And the thing that we invest in as love in our life, like the next time I had a catalyst was when my marriage ended. And that opened my heart again for more room for divine love, not just material love, like in this form here, which is beautiful and amazing, and I'm grateful for it, but it's something higher. And so I appreciate that. I'm really thinking about how, this is the opposite of grief is love. And that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot I could say about that. But first, I just remembered we haven't had like a longer break. So let's take 12 seconds to stretch the machine out. And chant our mantra. 3, 2, 1. Go! So, whenever you're ready, we'll descend. So,
Come back.
gather in the energy. Gather in the energy. Okay. So, yeah. And it's an interesting thing because we want to manage the world and have it be as problem-free as possible. We're not like encouraging making mistakes with their kids or having them suffer unnecessarily. It's just that existentially, no matter what you do, there's going to be problems. There's going to be a way in which our capacity for love is not met with our material circumstance, right? And I've been taught with Eva and other, we were talking about motherhood. And I was like, first of all, I'm not a mom, but I am a son, so I'll talk on that basis.
Yes.
And others were talking about parenthood, and this topic came up again and again, is that wanting to do the best for your child and looking back on how it was for you as a child. And here's the thing, is that you can't control everything. They're going to have their own custom-made experience of lack, despite your best intentions. And that means you should still do your best. It's not licensed to not try. It's licensed to try your best and leave the rest to Krishna, because the way the world is designed, the way that we're designed, nothing about a material circumstance is enough just to fill our heart. Our hearts are bigger than that. There's more capacity. And it's a beautiful thing when someone realizes that about themselves. Beautiful but painful, because it's only in that gap that they can realize there's something more I'm made for that I'm not getting. And the spiritual answer is saying, like, there's no combination of material circumstances that can actually satisfy you. It's actually categorically different. Here's a taste of that. Here's Sangha, people who are tasting that. Here's a practice where you can have that. Right? That parallel reality. Right? That's what we can access when we start to feel like there's a lack. So in a way, it becomes actually very redeeming. It's like, oh, all that stuff happened. All my reactions to that happened. And I wouldn't be here with the gifts I have now if I hadn't had that, if I hadn't felt that lack. I wouldn't be enjoying this meal if I hadn't felt hunger. I would be entitled. I would not understand the difference. I wouldn't know what it's like to actually have fullness if I didn't have the emptiness.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's actually very relatable in my experience, which was growing up with pretty good parents who were trying their best.
Yeah.
Always kind of feeling like there's, even with that, something missing, something not there, feeling isolated, loner, not really able to relate in certain ways. And that ended up being the catalyst when I was about 18 for discovering meditation and Eastern philosophy. And that was
And going to India.
going to India, yeah. Yeah, from the catalyst being trying some other things that didn't really work out as well, hitting a wall, being left in this feeling of like, I don't. And in that moment, there was like a very direct, but that was just what came up for me when you were saying that is, yeah, it really doesn't. Because you're not going to get that satisfaction from the material world, even if everything is handed to you.
It's only in coming to spiritual practice and getting that perspective that we realize it didn't matter that I didn't have more materially, or I had less, or I had more. There's no really any better or worse. All that's on a different stratum. Actually, I'm fundamentally just happy that I have this spiritual perspective and the opportunity to go in that way. Everyone else is fighting over scraps. Everyone else is like, I want this prison cell. No, I want that prison cell. I'll kill you for that prison cell, They're just fighting over scraps in this world. And it's just material adjustment, material management. And Bhagavad Gita is saying, no, it's not about that. You're actually made for so much more. So all this about grief and all this about love, it really connects to what our conclusion was yesterday too, about how you can't transcend the modes, really, and come to something else until you take up a spiritual practice. You have some Sangha, some community, some Seva, some service, and some sadhana, some daily, ideally, hopefully in the morning, but whenever you can, practice that you're like, this is my bare minimum that I do every day. And if I could do more, great, but I try to keep my head above water by doing this. Some japa, some, talk to a devotee every day, I read Bhagavad Gita, whatever your sadhana is. And if anyone wants support in developing their sadhana, you can talk to, some leaders of this retreat. We're happy to do that. That's part of what we do. And so when you're sitting down to your sadhana, or you're taking association from your sangha, you're doing some service, just know that that's feeding you. That's going to be ready for those moments of pop quizzes. It's gonna be ready for those moments of things being taken away. And it's actually like dying before dying. It's grieving before grieving. So that's what I wanted to end on. We can take any more last comments, questions, reflections before kirtan. How does that sit with you?
Something that's coming to mind is, you know, I've done both and a continuous process of grief and loving. And I've done a number of different breathwork journeys in the past, one transcendental and then learning and practicing the Lomiha. And what kind of came through after yesterday too, I one-on-one with Kishore mountaining, was that I've experienced so much grief through healing, through understanding my past, the lack, what we're just speaking of. So much grief around not feeling like I had a choice. Even though you go back and you did choose it, blah, 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 blah. But for the most part, that in my heart, feeling like I didn't have a choice and made me feel so sad and hopeless. And then at the end of our breathwork journey yesterday, I'm slowly arriving at the realization. What felt very clear was, but now you have a chance. I wasn't given what I needed. I wasn't given the math, maybe the spiritual mothers or parents or whatever. I didn't have that. Wasn't given that initially. And now to really shift it towards love and abundance and like, but now you have this chance through this intelligence, through the Sangha, through Bhakti, through it's shifting from no being choiceless to having a chance.
Yeah. And it keeps getting offered. It's not a one-time offer.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you show up the day after a 99% off sale, you feel like a real dumb person. But it's ongoing. Open offer. The offer stands. So we get to choose it. We get to like choose against our best interests and then change our mind again and be like, no, actually I choose my higher self again. And it's very empowering. It's very empowering. Thank you. Anything else? All right. So let's have a little more kirtan. And we can infuse this mantra, this chanting, with our experiences of grief and our calling out. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare
Bhagavad Gita as it is, Gita. Emotion, 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 Gita.
Shami Prastas ki
All right, thank you so much. Now we can offer, if you like, our respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are just like desire trees, can fulfill the desires of everyone and are full of compassion for the fallen souls. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.